Now, farming is a pretty important subject if you, I don't know, eat food. Do you eat food? Are you a human? Do you require calories? Do you need to swallow nutrients in order to not die? Yes. Well then surely you want all of your food sources controlled by centralist, narcissist, psychopath, lunatics who are telling you that they're helping you while acquiring vast tracts of farmland, while shutting down your ability to eat fresh food, while telling you that their every action is conducted in the sweet and holy name of preventing climate change, while flying avocados hither and yon, while growing laboratory meat and telling us to eat bugs, needlessly attacking and destroying the livelihood and lives of farmers. Do you know how many Indian farmers took their own lives in the last 10 years? They were the early adapters. They were the harbingers. They were the canary in the cage. They were the first victims of globalism and a globalist plot to control food that is now beginning to affect American farmers, Dutch farmers, German farmers, British farmers, farmers everywhere. Do you not ever get curious? Why are farmers all over the world pissed off and blocking roads and setting stuff on fire? Why could that be? Well, it's obvious, isn't it? They've all gone right-wing. They've all gone right-wing from all of their right-wing activity. You know, I've been running this farm for a while. My father, he pulled me up on farming, using mostly the fascism of Mussolini. We sprinkle a little bit of Mussolini over the crops, and then we're over there, and it's a little bit of Goebbels over there onto the maize. It makes it grow up beautifully. So what the hell is going on in farming? In our country, Jeremy Clarkson, who's a very important, significant media figure, has a show called Clarkson's Farm. But even this mainstream product proliferated by Amazon, the brand that perhaps above all others represents globalist consumerism, even his show, which is made by Amazon, has become a kind of anti-globalist commodity because he's talking about how his farming practices are restricted by ridiculous regulation and legislation. And if you're a farmer, you know already the moves they're making. They're making your fuel impossible to purchase. They're making your fertilizer illegal somehow. They're making your price structure not make sense. They are endlessly facilitating giant globalist corporations like Walmart or whatever supermarkets prevalent in your country have too much purchase power. And all the while, no one is telling us that it just makes common sense that all of us should be eating food that's grown or reared in the area that we're living in, that we should have as much control as possible over our food, as much awareness as possible of what's going into our mouths, as much control over seeds or livestock or whatever you want to call it as possible. And yet the trend is in the opposite direction. Let's get into it. As usual, one man stands as a colossus across the world. It's the universe's favorite nerd. It's the real-life Dr. Evil himself. It's the living paperclip. It's Bill Gates, and he's buying your farm.
Bill Gates has been snatching up 242,000 acres of farmland across the US, enough to make him the top private farmland owner in America. According to the Land Report, the tech billionaire has been purchasing agricultural land for years, building a massive portfolio of farmland in 18 states. His largest holdings are more than 69,000 acres in Louisiana, almost 48,000 acres in Arkansas, and about 20,500 acres in Nebraska. Additionally, he has a stake in 25,750 acres of traditional land in Phoenix, Arizona, which is being developed as a new suburb.
Why don't you just trust Bill? What have you got against Bill? He's trying to help you. He's tried to help you through the pandemic. He's trying to help you now. He's trying to help the people of various African nations. He's trying to help the people of India. He's just trying his best to help you. Why don't you want Bill Gates' help? I'm sure he's got a perfectly legitimate reason for acquiring all of this food and farmland. And I'm sure it has nothing to do with the centralization of resources to facilitate in an instant starvation with populations that become non-compliant. Because occasionally, don't you get a glimpse of a second kingdom, the real kingdom, the fact that like the lilies of the field or the birds, you could become free, that you are taken care of, that if you are able to peel away the layers of corruption and control, you might be able to participate in entirely different systems, and then quick enough, the record scratches and their authority is reimposed. I wonder if there's any connection between this acquisition of farmland, measures that seem designed to control and shut down farmers, and bioengineered food appearing in our supermarkets without so much as a murmur.
They say Aldi Fresh, but their salads contain bioengineered food ingredients. Their bagels contain bioengineered food ingredients. Not so fresh. No artificial flavors, but it contains bioengineered food ingredients.
Once they start sticking the insects down our throats, we'll be very grateful for the glory days of simple bioengineered natural treats. Oh, I remember when we didn't have to crunch our way for a big fistful of locusts as a lunchtime snack. Yeah, in my day we had bioengineered food, but then because of our bloody fascist farmers, the mad right-wing lunatics saluting Pol Pot and whatnot, now we've got to eat these bugs.
Even the granola bars or fruit bars contains bioengineered food ingredients.
What's going on with our farms and our farmers? What is being imposed, and how come a figure like Jeremy Clarkson, who's a very popular and successful broadcaster in our country, is pointing out that there are nonsense laws across the UK? We already know that everywhere, whether it's as a result of EU or UN edicts or various other legislative or bureaucratic bodies across India, Sri Lanka, elsewhere, who knows where these ideas are coming from, but I figure there's something to do with these crazy acreage acquiring lunatics that are always trying to help us. Why is it that the fuel for farmers is becoming expensive? Why is it that fertilizers are getting banned? Why is it we're being continually told that cows are Nazis now? What on earth is going on? And why is it that Jeremy Clarkson, who appeared to start a farm as little more than part of a TV show, is now pointing out that due to bureaucracy and peculiar regulation, it's cheaper to stop growing food? And wait for, there's a moment in this is extraordinary, a piece in this article, where a British agricultural official says, "We do acknowledge that the main point of farming is to produce food." That's the only point in farming. Well, no. The main point of farming is, of course, fascism. But after that, it's food. Do you have trouble sleeping or staying asleep? Perhaps because you're a busy parent or you work incredibly hard. I have to sleep well every night. I can't muck about because I have to look after my family. I have to do my job well. Now, Dream is a luxurious drink blend filled with the highest quality sleep-promoting ingredients. It will help you to fall asleep and stay asleep. This is my favourite one, peanut butter. But there are other flavours as well. Here they are. Now, you can incorporate this easily into your nighttime routine like I have done. It helps me wake up refreshed, not at all groggy like other sleep-promoting agents might. If you get a subscription, it saves you 20% every single month. Not to mention, you get a little free frother look. One scoop of Beam Dream is clinically shown to help you fall asleep faster, sleep through the night, and wake up fully refreshed. Visit shopbeam.com/RussellBrand. Use the code BRAND to get my exclusive discount of up to 35% off. And also they'll know that you use this code. It'll make this advert look like a real triumph. Jeremy Clarkson said he has stopped growing food in some of his fields because it is more profitable to take government eco-handouts. Since Brexit, farmers no longer receive subsidies for producing food, yet they can still get payments for environmental schemes under the Sustainable Farming Incentive. Clarkson, who has owned his diddly squat farm in Chipping Norton for 11 years, that's not far from here actually, we should go. And he's calling it diddly squat because he's that kind of guy, warned British farmers were being incentivized not to produce food. Isn't that weird? Is this part of some dreadful global scheme? Why would you incentivize farmers to not grow food? What's the point of farming? This has led to more imported food. That's weird, isn't it? It's weird that importing food is somehow better, more successful, more ecologically viable than eating food grown near your face and mouth. Writing in the Sunday Times magazine, he said, I've signed up to the government's eco-friendly grant scheme and will be planting things that aren't food in 3 fields. They're good for the soil and they're good for my bank balance, but it means I'll be growing stuff that people can't eat. I know one chap who has taken 60% of his farm out of food production and he's not alone. So yippee, all that stored carbon and all of that fixed in nitrogen. But what if you want some bread? You'll have to get a loaf made from wheat that was grown abroad and potentially that was genetically engineered. Do you feel that this is about control? Do you feel that there's an attempt to control food? That in a sense, this legislation is being brought about precisely because it will destabilize, debilitate, impoverish, and make farming impossible. Let me know if you are a farmer. Let us know what you are experiencing. Let us know if you're participating in these protests. Let us know why you think the legacy media aren't covering these protests correctly. And how's that good for global warming? He continues. Under the SFI, farmers can receive money for turning their arable and horticultural fields into bee-friendly wildflower meadows, grassland, or planting species that can feed winter birds. Now, look, I'm a bit of a hippie, and all those things sound pretty fantastic, but I believe that what you should have is localized power for farmers and incentives to ensure that the produce they generate is, broadly speaking, traded and contained as locally as possible. An entirely different, decentralized model where the community and the farmers interact together. Farming Minister Mark Spencer, whose name is much too much like Marks and Spencer's, which is a type of shop we have here in the UK, said, food production is the primary purpose of farming. That's like saying ejaculation is the primary purpose of masturbation. What other reason is there for it? Well, part of this will warm me up. I'll be nice and warm, and as a side effect, there will be some ejaculation. Food production is the sole purpose of farming. And we are taking action to clarify this principle. That's when you know bureaucracy's got out of control. That's when you know that minds that are not connected to truth, reason, the land, and the people have taken control of our hearts and minds. When a farming minister has to come out and say, food production is the primary purpose of farming, one of many. There's loads of reasons for farming, really. I farm, really, as sort of just is a hobby. I farm, really, to keep myself warm. I farm, really, just to get my toes in the soil. There's no other reason to farm. We'll be taking action to clarify this principle. You don't need to clarify a principle of pragmatism. You don't need to clarify the idea that food is for eating. You don't need to clarify the idea that this is plainly about control and centralizing food and the ability to distribute food and impecuniating farmers so they don't have no power, the same way that industry has been crippled in the previous century, so that every facet of working life, the working people that you have to represent but absolutely loathe, whose taxes you use to destroy them, the legacy media that you use to continually vilify them, whose movements you undermine, whose leaders you attack, whose movements you continually undermine, whose causes you claim are far right. All of these principles require clarification, but you ain't gonna get it from a corrupt government minister. The government has received more than 15,000 applications and used over 14,000 agreement offers and said the vast majority of land in the scheme continues to produce food in a more sustainable, resilient way that's good for food production and the environment. In an interview with The Telegraph this week, Caleb Cooper, Clarkson's farm manager, and if you watch Clarkson's show, Caleb's like a comedy character. Like, I'm guessing, obviously he's a legit farmer as well, but like this guy's like a normal guy. And check out what he's saying. He's pointing out the absolute fact of the matter. Now, you know, if you watch the show, and I've not watched it yet, but I will watch it actually, because it seems like it's pretty much on the nose when it comes to some of the issues we're facing around food production and therefore freedom. This is what he said. He warned that there was too much reliance on cheap imports and not enough support for growers. How does that feel if you're a farmer, if you're involved in agriculture? Does that sound true? He argued that if Britain continues to fail to produce sufficient food, it could lead to internal conflicts should there be another pandemic or global war. This guy's got his finger on the pulse. I mean, I suppose all they'd have to do now is say there's another pandemic or a climate change emergency, and then we wouldn't have enough food, and then they'd be able to control us and lock us in our homes and tell us that we had to take this medicine and that anyone who questioned it was like a fascist or far right. That's enough now, Caleb. Get out there and plant some fucking rhubarb, you little fascist. What happens? England at war with itself, he said. What an extraordinary image. This guy, Caleb's some kind of savant, isn't he? The government said it was committed to British farmers producing at least 60% of the food eaten in the country. Get out of our lives, you lot. Get out of our lives, you corrupt psychopaths. When it comes to fresh produce, the UK imports almost half of its vegetables and around 80% of its fruit each year. We should all be organising our diet around what's available, what can be grown. We should be supporting our farmers. We should have interconnected communities. We should have absolute, representative, localised democracies. Wherever possible, we should be freeing ourselves from the influence of these globalist psychopaths, these farmland acquiring lunatics that hate you, that want you starved and desperate and lost and alone. Whatever it takes to forge new pathways of freedom, we should be willing to undertake together. Look at this, another bizarre story. English farmers are being offered exit payments of up to £100,000 so that they would retire, allowing, centralisation of farming. The government will buy the land. English farmers wishing to retire from the agricultural industry are being offered exit payments of £100,000 under a DEFRA scheme. I guess that's some centralised organisation. The lump sum exit scheme is designed to help farmers. We got to help you, farmers, who wish to retire or leave the industry, but found it difficult to do so for financial reasons. I know similar plans are underfoot across the Netherlands, the second largest creator or grower of food in the world, second largest exporter of food after your country, the United States of America. What's happening to farmers in your country? What's happening to farmers in my country? What's happening to farmers around the world? And do you think there's something extraordinary going on when our food sources are being controlled, while we're being propagandized and told that eating this food is racist and eating that food is crazy and even looking at that food is far right? Do you think that something extraordinary is happening when it seems that farmers are being systematically impoverished and put out of business, that their land is being forcibly purchased by the government in the Netherlands and in Germany, when Bill Gates is acquiring farmland at a rate of extraordinary acreage? Something unusual is going on. I don't understand all of it, but what I do know is that it's not being done to help you. It's not being done to feed you. One of the things that happened in the pandemic period is we awoke from the illusion of their care and their concern. We saw how their treaties operate. We saw how their relationships with Big Pharma and the media interconnect to generate conditions of compliance, ignorance, sending us all either asleep or leaving us supine and vulnerable. They don't want you strong. They don't want you awake. They don't want you activated, intercommunicated, growing your own food, communicating freely with farmers, believing in a vision. No, they want you to believe that Biden's your pappy, Kamala's your mama, that Trump is the devil and that you should shut your mouth and that there is no alternative out there. Well, we're here to tell you that there is an alternative, that you are that alternative, and that you are participating in the revolution just through your disobedience, just through your refusal to consume their lies and to consume their bugs. But that's just what I think. Why don't you let me know what you think in the comments and the chat? Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to see more uncensored content where free speech can flourish, join our live stream. Click the link right here to watch the next video if you want to, or become a member of a growing movement. Download the Rumble app and you'll be informed every time we make a new piece of content. Stay free.